Yeah, that's so. You told us before we went on. You told us a story about, I think, some rats in a water supply that you didn't know were in there until after you'd already had a sip or two.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Shop Talk, where we are talking to one of our own about his adventure of a lifetime. Now here are your hosts, Chief Jeff Walther and Sergeant Kevin Quon.
Hey everyone, it's April, right Kevin? It's April. We're into April. We're on episode 9 of Shop Talk. I'm Chief Jeff Walther of the Scottsdale Police Department, and it's exciting. I mean, we're just coming out of the end of our major event season, and I know everybody in the organization is pretty tired. A lot of overtime, a lot of off-duty time, a lot of covering a lot of big events. I mean, we've talked through those events. We've had some great guests on to help talk us through the events. Barrett Jackson, the Waste Management Phoenix Open last month. We had Charos. Great. This month, we're going to do something a bit different.
Absolutely.
We are going to showcase one of our own. One of our detention officers, Adan Leon, is with us today. And I'm sorry for those who have sent in questions. We are going to absolutely get to your questions next month.
Yep.
But this month, we have so much to talk about with Adan because he did something real cool. In fact, he did something that my wife has been talking to me about for a very long time wanting to do, and that is the Pacific Crest Trail. And Adan did a huge section, multiple sections. I don't know. We'll let him talk here in a minute about the, I think 1,600 miles that he hiked. Shocking. And I will tell you that I was the beneficiary of getting texts and pictures from Adan along the trail. And so I was super honored to get those and kind of vicariously share his journey with him. So without further ado, Adan, go ahead and introduce yourself to the listening audience. They're going to want to know who you are, what you do, how you got here, and then I think we're going to have some questions for you to really kick this off and get into your pretty awesome journey.
Definitely. Hi, Sarge. Hi, Chief. Let's see. I work in the detention division. How did I get started with this? This whole idea came about that I was listening to this podcast, and the podcast is Backpacker Radio. It's got these two amazing hosts that are talking about their adventures, and I've worked in the jail, in a jail, for the last almost 25 years.
Yeah. How long you been with us?
I've been with you for about 4 years.
Okay.
And I've been inside for 25 years. I figured I wanted to go outside. And the perfect time came about because my daughter was graduating high school. My son was just about to have a baby. And it was time to go do this. It was just time to do this before my daughter went to college. And I wanted to make it all happen. And so we got our gear and we made our plans, and we were just going to make it happen. I asked for time off.
You did? That's actually how we got this rolling, and how I kind of got into your story and your daughter and her graduating, and kind of the impetus for this is that you and I had a conversation, and you were going to be gone 3, 4, 5 months potentially, and we had some discussion about taking a leave of absence, which I fully supported and was so behind. And I'm going to just thank you publicly for coming to see me and having the conversation with me and letting me know what was going on. And I was super honored to say, go live out this once in a lifetime dream. And I'm just excited to have you here to talk about the back end of that now.
You made me so happy. I wanted to go and do this and come back to my job when I was done. And, in the interim, my daughter and I were going to have an adventure. And so we did our research, and we started working out, and we got all our gear.
Yeah.
And wow, this stuff is expensive.
It's very expensive.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, very.
And the lighter it is, the more expensive it is.
Yeah, it's funny because I want to get into that as you go. It's funny, my wife and I are big into backpacking, And she's been shooting me questions today. She's like, make sure Quon throw this on. Make sure Quon does this. Make sure Quon does that. And I thought, do you want me just to give you Quon's phone number so you can send him some questions?
We should have brought her on the show.
We totally should have brought her on.
She could have
the show.
answered asked questions that I have no idea about.
Yeah, super excited. Like today, she's like, hey, make sure you find out what his trail name was. Make sure you know what his pack weighed at the beginning. And then as he got into it, find out what ultimately he cut down to, because she and I are always looking at, okay, what can we cut out?
Yeah.
What do we really need and what do we not need? Right. And we haven't even attempted anything like what the amazing feat that you've done. But yeah, she has all kinds of questions.
Yeah, well, you need to let me know. I'll do my best to answer them.
Good. So let's start out with some of the questions, because you've given us kind of that reason behind it. You know, your daughter was graduating from high school and was going to go off to college, and you started a little bit later in the Pacific Crest Trail season. For those of our listeners who don't know, typically there's a season because it takes anywhere, depending on how fast you do it, from 4 to 6 months if you do the whole thing in one shot. And so, but you started later because she had to graduate from high school.
Exactly.
So
we came up with this plan where we would start in Tehachapi, so it's kind of like getting a head start, kind of catching up where everybody was.
Like getting out of the hot area, skipping the hot area with the plan to come back, right?
Right, but we'll still getting a taste of that before I got to the Sierra Nevadas. Because the Sierra Nevadas are this big milestone. Because it's mountainous. I mean, you go through mountains, but it is big mountains when you get Sierra Nevadas.
Yeah.
So it was to get a head start, go to Tehachapi, and from Tehachapi, work your way north, Nobo.
Yeah.
So that was the plan. So we took off from Tehachapi. My dad drove us up. We did a little tour of California as we got there.
Yeah.
And we left from Tehachapi, and it was hot. And it was windy. There's wind farms. And there's a reason those are there, because it is so windy.
Yeah.
We did some night hikes. It was hot. Even at night, it was blowing hot. It's like a blow dryer. So I felt like maybe like one of those meteorologists that are showing you, this is a tornado, and they're walking forward, leaning into the wind. We were leaning into the wind.
Yes.
Wow.
Like that. Yeah, it was really bad, but it was hot during the day. These things added up to my daughter at a few days in saying, Dad, I like car camping and not hiking. And so I was broken. You know, she broke my heart a little bit, but I was so glad she did it for a few days with me.
For several days with you.
So
she got you. Little did you know, she got you started.
She did.
Yeah.
She got me on the right track, but it was really hot. She got dehydrated. Then we ended up having to backtrack to Tehachapi.
Yeah.
And this is my first experience with trail angels. So there was a sheet that was printed out right at the road, and it had the list of trail angels and the services they could provide, like sewing or transportation or even housing.
That's amazing.
So, trail angels are something.
Yeah.
I need to mention how wonderful they are.
Yeah.
So working 24 or 25 years in a jail and working with bad people and doing bad things and seeing bad things, it was really different.
You're like, who are these aliens, space aliens who are trail angels, right?
They were, and they were wonderful. And they were like, yeah, get into my car. They don't even know. I'm like, do you want to see ID? Do you want to know about me? I'm not a crazy guy. I'm a regular person. Oh, no. And you just get right in their vehicle, and they drove us to their house. And they had hosted many, many people, Cheryl and Ted of Tehachapi. And they drove us to their house. And we had to reset. I had to find a way for Lawrence to get home from Tehachapi.
Yeah.
And, they come right in, and they showed us to our rooms in their house.
Wow.
And they
cool.
They had note cards like, well, this is our Wi-Fi password. And they're like, go ahead and take everything off. Here's some loaner clothes and a robe, and we'll wash those up. We'll get you we want to get you restarted so you can, be at 100% when you get back on the trail. And so they washed clothes, and dinner's almost ready, and go ahead and take your shower. And they got us all reset, and they got us a ride to Tehachapi, where Lauren got a plane to Bakersfield, flew back, and then eventually getting me back onto the trail and doing it solo.
Okay, so what was that moment like when you're back? Lauren's gone, right? She flew home, and it's just you now. And literally, it's that first step back on the trail. Kind of, how were you feeling? What were you thinking right there? Were you bummed? Were you excited?
I was definitely bummed. But the good part about it is then I just had to worry about me.
Yeah.
It was just, I had to do this. And it was, Pack weight went down a little bit.
Yeah.
Things that I was carrying for her, but it was mostly about, well, this is what I need to do, and I had this wonderful opportunity, and I was going to do it.
Yeah.
I don't even say the quit word. I didn't want to ever say it, and so at no point was that uttered.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to give it life. I wanted to make sure
that's
this
so
is
cool.
the time to do it, and today I'm going to do this many miles.
Yeah.
And
it's a great time to mention for those who are listening in who aren't familiar with backpacking or any of the 3 major trails in the United States. So Aden hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, which is on the border of California and Mexico, and then it goes north all the way to the Canadian border. So all the way through California, through parts of Oregon, Washington State, and into Canada, or right at the Canadian border. 3 major trails: the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Appalachian Trail. A lot of people have heard of the Appalachian Trail, and there are trail angels on all of those. A lot on the Appalachian, a lot on the Pacific Crest Trail, not so many on the Continental Divide Trail, which is a hard trail. That one's 3,200 miles. But help me out, I think that the Pacific Crest Trail is like 2,700 total miles if you do the whole thing.
right, people say 2,650.
Yeah. So it's an incredible hike, quote unquote, that takes, can take a long time. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, it is a feat of mental and physical ability. So, and I think it's important because people can't see you all, but if you would tell our folks you're not 25 years old. So if you would just kind of, if you don't mind telling us your age.
Age.
Like, Rick, because come on, Aden, let's be honest. You're not a spring chicken here.
Who knows anymore? It's all ish these days.
It is.
I'm 47-ish.
Yeah, you're 47-ish.
I don't even know if it's exact.
Yeah, right.
anymore.
You're a stone's throw away from half a century.
There
Right.
you go.
So anybody who's listening, that's one of the cool things about it. I look at the age ranges of people that typically hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and there's a noticeable gap missing. It's those really young people, 18 to 25 that do it before they really get into their careers, or it's people typically over 50 who've retired and now have the time to do that. But you're in that sweet spot where they wanted more people in their 30s and 40s to hike it. Boom, that was you.
And that's true. There's very few people in the middle. It's younger people and it's older people. And every once in a while, you see somebody around my age.
So tell me, from a person that I have no idea about hiking. I mean, Chief lives in the woods, but coming from the urban area of LA, this is a complete foreign concept. So where did you even start? You said you did research. Well, what does that even mean? Was it the movie, or was it like what? Really
the Reese Witherspoon movie,
right?
Yeah,
and that's my only concept of what this is.
Well, there's actually a guy named Jay on the trail, and he does a video vlog of his whole trip. Little segments. There might be 40 segments of it, so you can actually watch and see somewhat of what the situation will be when you get to this next section.
Wow.
Chief was saying it's 2,650, starts at the border of California, Mexico, and all the way to Canada. And it's this continuous trail. That's a big part of it. It's this continuous trail. So barring there's no fires or floods, or you're not snowed out, it's a continuous footpath the whole way. And then he was talking numbers. Let's see, Chief, you were talking numbers. It goes through 6 national parks, 35 national forests, and 48 wilderness areas. Sometimes these are closed to regular day hikers.
Yeah.
And there'll be a caveat that if you're on the Pacific Crest Trail, you can take your own chances and go through it. You'll be fine.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Right? Yeah, you'll be fine. There's so many down trails, like in Oregon and Washington.
Yeah.
And your job is to scurry around it, above it, underneath it, drag your pack across.
Yeah. Because in a lot of our forests now, my primary residence, although I don't get home very much anymore, is up in Alpine, Arizona, and a lot of downfall, a lot of trees that are down due to past forest fires that eventually the Forest Service gets to and clears out of the way. But along the trail, you're going to run into a lot of downfall. So talk to us about some of the dangers that are along the trail. Not to discourage anybody, but there's some things that are dangerous.
Different dangers in different areas.
Yeah.
There's the heat. So the only people that I know about that died in 2021, and it was heat related. Heat related because you're carrying so much weight. In the desert, the longest distance that I had to go without water was 22 miles, I think.
Wow.
And so you need to carry all your water for 22 miles in the heat. Sometimes you can break your day up, like maybe doing a morning hike, hiding out by water if you can during the hottest part of the day, and then hiking again into the night.
Did you notice at all, like during the hot parts, when you said there's 22, the largest or the longest spell between water, 22 miles, did you notice if you were doing, say, like a liter of water per 7 or a liter of water per how many? Did you notice that at all? Or what was the max you were carrying for that knowing that it was going to be 22 miles?
Right. It gets refined over time. You start to figure out how hot it is outside and how much you need. You start figuring, it's way more humid and I need more water. I figured the 22 miles, I needed 8 liters. 8 liters is a ton of water.
Yes,
it's so heavy.
It's 2.2 pounds per liter of water. So
you're carrying a bowling ball.
So you figure 8 liters of water, you're at more than 16 pounds. You actually are more than 17 pounds. So we're right in that area. So
and you do something called cameling. When you get to a water source,
you just drink.
You'll drink as much as you can. You want to carry it inside of you, not on your back.
Yeah.
And so you'll camel up. But also there's this app. People go, how did you know how to do all this?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know how to do all this. I did watch some YouTube videos, and I did follow this podcast.
Yeah.
But there's an app called Gut Hooks.
Yes.
And on Gut Hooks, you download the map, and then using your phone's GPS, it will place you on the map. And so as you move, the little icon moves, and there's a social aspect to it because water resources are so important. The person ahead of you or behind you, they'll update if there's water at a section. And sometimes it's not a natural source. Sometimes trail angels will leave gallons of water, and the person ahead of you will denote there are 17
cool.
gallons here as of this date and this time. And so that's how you'll know how reliable the water source is, so you can plan your day, and you can plan how much you're going to carry. A big part of it's how much am I going to carry to the next water source? And if you know it's pretty reliable, you're going to carry just enough.
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll run out before you get there because you know there's going to be
I've
water
had that
there.
happen before, and it freaks me out.
It makes you thirsty because I don't have
Yeah,
water.
I'm like, I'm out of water, and I didn't plan right, and I have, X number of miles to go before I know I'm going to get water. And I think it's a psychological thing. You're like, I'm fully hydrated. You're right. But I'm all of a sudden, I need a salt pill. I need something to get me. And it's just.
Did you run into any of that during your trek of like, I have water and then, oh crap, I don't?
There were only a couple of occasions. There were 2 occasions where it says there's going to be water. It was reliable. And I get there and there's no water. There's no water and you're so thirsty. And I don't know, when is the last time you've really been thirsty? When's the last time you've run out of food and you're really hungry? For me, I don't know. I've never.
Right.
Never.
For me, it's only been on the trail.
So I got to the water source and there was no water. It was dried up. It was mud. And then, after the moment of your stomach dropping, you check the app and you're looking where the next water source is 4 miles ahead. What are your choices?
Yeah.
You walk 4 miles.
4 miles.
Suck it up.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're like so thirsty. And then when I arrived, it was actually a lake. And there were actually people in vehicles and their dogs and kids all around as this man emerges from the woods to gather water.
Kind of looking like a homeless person. Yeah.
Well, I didn't shave. That's another thing. I didn't shave.
Don't mean to disparage homeless people, but, that's what you look like.
And I smelled like one too. Yeah. I did. I smelled so bad. Another thing, when you pass, you'll pass Sobo southbounders coming on the pass.
Pacific look at you. Yeah, even the lingo, you're good. Sobos, Sobo, and Nobo.
And you'll chit chat. You'll chit chat for a minute, find out what's the water ahead, what's the water that I've encountered so far, just to get an update.
Did that lake feel like it was a mirage? Were you like so?
Could you swim in it? Did you jump in, clean wash off a little bit?
You do as best you can. Yes.
Sorry, Kevin.
No, all good. Yeah, like the relief. Like, is that like the greatest relief? You're like, oh my gosh, it's actually here. After being so disappointed from the last one, I mean, I can't imagine how awesome that must have felt.
I didn't cry, but I was definitely emotional.
Yeah.
I was very, and in my life, I'm not. I eat well, I drink well, and then in these situations, I was really thirsty, and it was just really odd to see normal people by the lake enjoying themselves and not knowing what had just happened to me. Knowing how thirsty I really was.
Right.
I've been looking forward to this for a long time because already you talk about things that I think are so important, conversations that I have with people, my wife in particular, and my adult children, about how soft we are, how easy life has become for us, and that you know it's really easy to take it for granted until you challenge yourself. I mean, you really challenge yourself, and you go, you have a moment where you're out of water, you've been out of water for a little while, and you've got 4 miles to go, and you're carrying everything that you need in life, you're carrying on your back,
everything
food wise, and you're hungry, and just how you realize in that moment when you see, it's funny, you get to the lake, there are people there who have no idea that what's important, right? And what's important is that drink of water, that little bit of food, that connection with people. We were talking about it before we started the show about connecting and being connected with people. I think that challenge is so amazing.
It was an opportunity for me to learn about myself, in that my days were planned out where the next water resource was going to be. I knew how much food I had in my back and how many days before the next resupply point. And so
what's a resupply point?
It's the next spot at which you can resupply. And I resupplied every 4 to 6 days.
Okay.
Different points. Maybe it is a local town. Sometimes you have to hike out to a town or to a road where you can.
Right, because you wind up adding extra miles because you've got to come off the trail and then resupply and then hike back to the trail, right?
Well, this leads into so in Yosemite, you have to hike over Kearsarge to leave to get a resupply. So it's 7 extra miles.
Wow.
And I don't know how many thousands of feet you have to climb.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you go to a town, you get your resupply, and then you have to walk back up and over Kearsarge Pass.
Oh,
you have to
wow.
do it twice. Well, my girlfriend, she was in charge of, so I would let her know how much food, like it's a 6-day resupply or a 4-day resupply, and she would package it up in these.
Great. That was going to be my question. If you were buying in town, or if you were having your support crew, your girlfriend, send you resupply boxes.
Right. Sylvia would send me out, this is a 4-day box.
Okay.
Or a 6-day box.
Oh, okay.
And so I would
That's
have enough
great.
food to get to the next section.
What's in the box?
Well, a lot of it at the beginning was going to be like Mountain House, granola
freeze-dried
bars.
food. Yeah.
I did
So in your boxes.
jerky.
Okay, jerky.
Sometimes a ramen bomb. That's something you have from time to time.
What is
It'll
that?
be ramen that you add. So you make regular chicken ramen, and then there'd be a package of pre-cooked chicken.
Yeah.
You would add to it.
Yeah.
And then you would do your best to add potato flakes
Oh, okay.
to it, just to bump up.
Really?
Potato flakes are so high in calories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you'd
So a
end
lot
up
of that starch to give you that energy, but in ramen, I don't know, 1,500 milligrams of sodium in there to get to replace some of that.
That's a wonderful thing. You can eat whatever
Yes.
you want, as
Yeah.
much as you want, and you'll still lose weight.
Yeah.
I've been eating. I'm husky now. Husky. Okay, but you can eat on the trail. You eat as much as you want all day long. Whatever you can. The worst thing is you have to carry it.
Yeah.
But you're allowed to eat whatever you want.
Because you're burning so many calories, and we haven't gotten to it yet. Because I want you to finish kind of what was in your box, but I want to get to mileage and talk about what you were looking at in mileage. But sorry, so
beef jerky.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's hard candy in there, or gummy bears.
Yeah.
Freeze dried like Mountain House, and then slowly I transitioned to Peak. Peak makes these different meals that are really high in calorie. Sometimes up to 1,500 in calories.
Wow. Okay.
High in calorie, and Mountain House are maybe going to be 700 or
Yeah,
800
yeah.
calories. So you really want to bump up all the calories you can. So a lot of times people will talk about weight versus the caloric count of it.
Okay.
And so you want the calorie count to be up.
Especially for high calorie, but you're comparing what's the weight of this and what's the calorie count, and so that's that makes a lot of sense.
A Snickers bar, one a day.
Yeah.
Payday.
So did you have the military, the MRE stuff where it cooks it for you and all that, or is it
Nobody
just
does that.
nobody does that?
Nobody does
Nobody
that.
does
See,
yeah.
urban.
Yeah,
I wanted to do
yeah.
it for
Well, if you
me.
ever want
and-
a 2-day camp, I mean, that'd be all right if
Yeah,
you're just going
yeah.
out for a couple days.
But you were carrying a backpack stove, right?
I was carrying
Okay.
it's the pocket rocket.
Yeah.
And it has a little canister of
Like a
fuel.
small little MSR can or something like
Okay.
Right.
And that's what you light to
Yep.
cook
And
everything.
you
in.
have X amount of fuel, and you have to ration everything. Everything's rationed.
That's awesome.
Sometimes there is give and take. Like you only have so much water, And so you have to decide, am I going to have coffee in the morning or am I going to drink my water right now tonight?
What do you do without energy drinks? I'm confused.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
So coffee, it's your caffeine. How does that affect you? If it's just to wake you up to go, or is that actually getting you sustained?
It's a delicious perk. My girlfriend Sylvia made up these little packages that has, it would have instant coffee and a little bit of sugar and creamer. And I knew exactly how far my mug to fill up in order to make this in the morning.
That's awesome.
But there's give and take with this water. Water is the main factor in this hike. How much were you going to carry? And there's some rationing that'll happen at times.
At what point did you think, I just want to enjoy the coffee, have like 4 extra cups? Or was it just, you just understand like...
Well, sometimes you're camping by a lake and there's endless water because I have a water filter.
Yeah.
And I will drink and eat and as much as I want.
That's great.
It's funny, you talk about water, and, my wife and I had been backpacking for a lot of years, not anything like the distance you're talking about, much shorter trips, but water purification has really changed. So we talked about, you had the Sawyer squeeze, which is super lightweight. You can backwash it to clean it out, and it will just filter thousands of gallons of water.
Right.
So at being really light. So I'm assuming that, did you use that for every water source that you used, or did you just wing it sometimes?
Nope. Once I decided I was going to filter, I just filtered everything.
Good for you.
If you want to talk about water, we can talk about water.
Yeah.
We can talk about horrible water, the worst water you can think of that you wouldn't drink, and then we can talk about great water, because I had great water. There were areas where a spring would, in this majestic area, a spring would come out of nowhere and it would flow over a moss, and the sun rays are coming down, and you're like, this is like so good when you drink it, and it's cold, and you filter it, and you're like, you can't buy this one. This is $4 a bottle of water, Maybe it's worth carrying a little extra because it's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
So those are your best water sources. Let's talk about the worst water sources.
Oh, worst water sources. Yeah. Okay. I drink out of a cow pond. You drink out of there's you can see hoof marks. You can see poop on the side. The water inside has leaves and it's the color of tea, but it is the water source of the area, and you will drink because you are thirsty. You'll filter twice and it'll still have some color, maybe a little smell, but you're going to drink it because you're thirsty, and there is no other choice. Frog water. I mean, there's every, there's a life cycle of a frog. It was all in this water. There's eggs, and there's tadpoles and pollywogs, and as you walk closer to it, it's really shallow, and you can see frogs jumping from under your feet area.
No way.
And you do your best to I have this little this Ceanoc bag that I'm trying to fill with water and avoid creatures as best I can. And you filter that, and I'm sure there's eggs and all kinds of other things in there, but you're going to drink it because you're thirsty. I drank it.
Yeah. That's so. You told us before we went on. You told us a story about, I think, some rats in a water supply that you didn't know were in there until after you'd already had a sip or two.
That was after the flip. So that was the flip. We flipped, and I eventually I did a flip, and so I went south in the desert at some point.
Right.
And
so you changed from Nobo to Sobo. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Right. And so during this hike, this section, there was limited water resources in the desert again. And I document, you look at these different cisterns, and in the cistern, you'll get down and you'll try to see what's in there. Sometimes it's just rain flow that gets collected into these cement basins. And maybe they're just leaves, or maybe it's like the oily film. And so you have to be careful on what you choose. Well, this one was a large cistern that actually had a cover on top. I was hiking with some fellas that were pretty fast, and they arrived there before me, and they were so happy. They were drinking water, and they had actually pulled water out for me, and they're happy, but it had a tangy taste to it. And so I, of course, gathered the water they had given me, and I was drinking the water I already had. Before we leave, I go, I'm going to document. So I moved this cover that was on top. And of course, we say a lot of bad words, and we're really shocked by this whole thing because they were drinking it. They've already downed so much of it.
Oh my gosh.
So you left it, right? You didn't drink that water?
Oh, we drank that. I mean,
it was filtered. He filtered it.
Yeah, it's filtered.
It was totally fine.
I've heard it twice now, and I still want to throw up every single time.
I mean, there were no parts in there, but
come on, there were no parts. It was just...
It had a little tangy. a little tangy.
It added
taste.
a little flavor.
It was kind of like tea.
See?
It was a little. It was different.
So
it was different.
gross.
It was different.
But Kevin, aren't you just fascinated by the mindset?
Yes.
You know, when you're on this trail, you're pushing yourself, you're going great distances. There's no quit in you, like Aden talks about. I'm not even gonna let the word quit in there. And you need to drink, you need to stay hydrated. You know what? I got a filter here. I'll filter out this, these decomposing rats out of the water source because you know what? I'm bad. You know, I mean wow, that is so cool.
And just so you know, I didn't leave them in there. We fished the rats out and threw them out for the next people.
Right, you took
That's
I'm
really
taking
kind.
care of the other guys. Yeah.
Because the people in front of you didn't do that.
They didn't know.
maybe
maybe
they got a few out. I don't know.
So, we talk about what's in your resupply boxes and the water, and, we talked about kind of that no quit mindset.
We wanted to take a moment to thank you, our listeners, for sending in your questions. Like Aden says, don't quit. Keep sending in those questions and ideas for future episodes. We'll get back to answering more fan questions next month. For now, let's get back to Aden's adventures along the Pacific Crest Trail.
Can you talk to the listeners about something that if you don't backpack, you don't really know, about 0 days where you didn't hike at all, and say you were in a town? Any times where you spent, maybe you were in a resupply area, you hit a hotel, you got a shower, or restaurants maybe that you ordered 2 entrees for, and then down the whole thing.
And that's true. You get to a town and it is great. You're gonna wash clothes. You're gonna take a shower. You're gonna sleep in a bed. I mean, these are fantastic amenities like a flushing toilet. Those are
God.
on my list. But you'll go eat, and like, let's say you order a large pizza and you'll eat half, and then you'll take the other half and you'll eat it a few hours later. You can eat anything. It is, people that love to eat should hike.
Let's do it.
You can eat anything all the time and you'll lose weight. And then afterwards, of course, you lost weight. You can keep eating afterwards. I'm about 10 pounds lighter than when I left, and I lost a lot of weight.
How much did you lose?
I think I lost 45 pounds.
Wow.
A lot of weight.
Yeah.
I was skinny. I was like socks on a rooster. Yeah, I was a skinny guy when I got back.
That's such a cool analogy. That's a great picture.
Nothing was staying on me. At one point, I had to buy a belt because I was, pulling up my pants the whole time because I had lost so much weight.
Yeah.
And eventually, when I lost enough weight, it was in Oregon that I did do a resupply where I went to REI.
Yeah.
And
had to get new clothes.
I got new clothes. Well, the whole time I had only a few shirts. You don't carry much clothes.
Right.
So I had a Hawaiian shirt because I was on vacation.
Yeah.
So I wore a Hawaiian shirt.
That's great.
And some pants and my shoes. Well, I began with a stronger, more sturdy shoe. And then when I finally got to Oregon, I switched up. I hurt my ankle. I was limping for a while. And I ended up switching to the Speed Goats. Hoka 1-1 Speed Goats.
Okay.
I love them. Those are the best now. I advocate.
Decent amount of traction and support, or
decent amount of traction, and they're very, very cushiony.
Okay. So
I needed that.
Yeah.
But I switched up. But I got a smaller shirt. I got smaller pants. I got new underwear. How many underwear you got? I had one pair of underwear, and then you have shorts with underwear in them, and then a pair of pants.
Yeah.
And then how many shirts? I had my Hawaiian shirt, a sun shirt, and a jacket, a hat. See, 2 or 3 pairs of socks. You kind of rotate your socks, and then you have one sleeping pair. I had one sleeping pair of socks that you put on at night in order to help keep your sleeping bag clean. I went through 4 pair of shoes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You get about 500 miles per pair of shoe kind of thing, and sometimes they break down, or you'll bust out a side because you're gonna rip through rock. You go over lava areas in Oregon and Washington, and so they rip through your shoes pretty well.
So all of this in your pack, what was your starting weight?
Yeah, your pack weight.
18.5 pounds.
Total. Is that that's your
weight.
dry weight?
That's
your base weight. Yeah,
yes.
your base weight. So that's not water or fuel or food. So that's pretty good. For our listeners out there, my wife and I joke around that there are ultralighters that are like, their base weight is 10 pounds or under, and then there's lightweighters, which we started out, which was your base weight was under 20, and then you have people who are like, the kitchen sink, carry everything and everything heavy. And so you were in that, lightweight, not ultralight, when you started out at 18 pounds of base weight. Did you, as the hike continued, did you start to drop things from your pack? And if so, what was it?
Yes, over time I dropped another 1.5 pounds. And what was it? It was extra clothing.
Yeah.
It was, nonsense cords and things like that for your charging. Smaller charging battery, because you have a battery bank that you carry with you. Because I carried a Garmin InReach. It's that.
Yes, perfect.
It's like a satellite system.
Yep. So it has the SOS button on it.
Yes.
Yep.
SOS button, and then also you can send information like through Bluetooth from your phone to the Garmin InReach to satellites.
Yes.
Satellites to the phone system.
Yeah, and
that's yours.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
I did the mini.
Oh, you had the mini. I had the regular one. The mini's even better because of ounces equal pounds.
It's a little guy. It looks like
it's a little guy.
team.
Yeah,
looks like a little walkie-talkie.
But you can SOS. I mean, and Garmin monitors it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you're in trouble, you hit an SOS button. You can text via the satellite network.
And I had the breadcrumbs on, so it pinged every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So my dad could be at his computer
and see where you are
and check on where I'm at.
So cool.
Seeing if I'm making good time or not.
I love with that you can send a text to somebody over the satellite network and it'll drop a pin in the text of exactly where you are.
Right.
Super cool.
And every once in a while, you're not getting any signal because there's tree cover or whatever. And then, bing, and you got a text, Kevin Johnson saying, keep it up.
Yeah.
You're doing good. Or, I'd hear from, somebody else at work or Lieutenant Rollins.
Yeah.
You're like, keep it up. And I don't know. It was nice to hear from people saying, we're thinking of you, but just keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep
And
going.
then the pictures you sent were just, they were fantastic.
At one point, I was got cell service. I was by South Lake Tahoe on the side of a mountain not too far from one of these ski resorts.
Yeah.
And I called Lieutenant Rollins. And we did a on the side of the mountain. I don't know how many thousand feet up. Look at this vista, and I'm showing my phone. I'm letting him know where I'm at. And and we had a little video conference right there on the side of the mountain.
That's so neat. Yeah, that's good. And so you were by yourself. I mean, you came in. You I think you did some hiking with some other people that you came across on the trail, or you would meet people. How'd you do with that? With the solitude though, with the spending that time. Kind of just by yourself. I think you talked about, you go three days without seeing a single other person. Can you kind of talk about that and how that, how that shapes you and the way you see the world today?
It's really different. It's really different being by yourself. I mean, at times you camp by yourself. You're just like, I own this lake. I'm by myself, and you can set your tent up in a fashion where, you open the flap and you have a lakeside view. You can, maybe you're in bed and you make your coffee in the morning and it's really beautiful. But there were days, I think up to 3 days, where I didn't see anybody.
Yeah.
No contact with anybody.
Do you think you were lost? Or you knew I'm good to go?
I did check my phone often just to make sure I'm,
Am I on the trail?
Right.
Where is everybody?
Yeah.
Am I the last person alive on Earth? Did everybody disappear?
Was everybody smart enough to go home and I'm still out here? No, it was really interesting to be by yourself, and I learned that I don't really mind being by myself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't scary to be on trail by yourself, or I wasn't worried about animals. People are like, oh, bears and all these other. No, I'm not worried about bears.
Yeah.
I saw deer and a few elk and a bunch of marmots and squirrels and all kinds of bees and ants.
You and I talked before you left, and you told everybody you're 47, but growing up, you were an athlete, and so I'm curious if you as you kind of got into the hike and then midway and finished the hike, did you, have a greater sense of accomplishment or, something that you looked at and said, wow, I really did this. And if so, was that just a big deal to you?
Well, I ran in high school and college. And so, I had done things, and I have confidence that I can do things. But when you move from mountaintop to mountaintop, because it is Pacific Crest Trail for a reason.
Yeah.
If you see a mountain, you're going to climb it. And so you go from mountaintop to mountaintop. But if you reach, this high point, you can look back and you go, I can see that radio tower over there. And I went to that. You can look back miles and miles and miles and see where you have been. And you're like, I've done that. And it is like a good sense of accomplishment seeing, I've been all those miles over this mountain, over that mountain, through that valley.
What was the total miles? Remember you saying around 1,600, or was that
It's
correct?
a little over 16 is what I did. 1,600 miles on foot.
1,600 miles on foot.
And it sounds like a lot, but for the most part, I was doing about, 15, 16, 17 miles a day.
Okay.
The most I did was 25 in a day, and it's because if I can get to that town faster, if you know what I mean? If I can move, I can get this done faster, and I'm going to hike into the night.
So was there anything that you didn't have on the trail that you were like, oh, I learned about this later that would have been just incredible to have? Or did you just have really good conversations that you could go pick up at the next resupply point or something?
For the most part, I had everything I needed. I had more than I needed. And I actually cut. That was a big part of it. You find out, I don't need this, and I don't need that, and I don't need that luxury. And eventually you'll find out you need a lot less than you think.
Trail name. Did they give you, because, I always watched a lot of videos on the PCT and you're like, oh, eventually you get a trail name. Did you get a trail name?
So my girlfriend, who was off trail, wanted to call me Rango. Have you ever seen the movie Rango?
Yeah, with
the
Johnny
little
Depp.
lizard, little lizard in the desert, because I had my Hawaiian shirt.
Oh, yeah.
She thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
But she's not on the trail, so she couldn't name me.
Yeah.
So on the trail, Mr. Roboto, because I made some stupid comment about when you're going uphill, you need to turn your mind off, and it needs to be like a robot. You need to be just going uphill, because it's not easy, but you got to do it.
Good song.
Well, how did it come? So you had the conversation. How did it stick? Like, where did that even?
Somebody, of course, jumps on board with it. Oh, like a robot, and then it just grows and grows and grows into Mr. Robot, eventually into Mr. Roboto.
And then that's it.
That stuck.
That's awesome.
And you want to try to pick. I was willing to take that one because not everybody has great trail names. I mean, there's lots of badgers and these other very common names. Tortoise and a lot of names are really common.
Yeah.
I was okay with that one. I didn't want to get one like Dumpster Fire or Poop Shoe or all these other great names people come up with. I didn't want one of those names. So I was hiking with a fella that was going about the same speed as me, Mr. Clean. And it took a while to figure out. So Mr. Clean, of course, he's a taller guy. He's bald. White guy. Mr. Clean. Perfect. And it just so happens whenever you stop, he is always neurotically cleaning.
Yeah.
Cleaning clothes, washing this and that. He was neurotic about everything. We hiked to Sierra City, and then we had to find our way to get around the fire out of this small town. We looked for, all kinds of services like buses, and everything was closed. Eventually, we found a taxi service that would come to pick us up. Cost us $200 to get around the fire.
Wow.
And you'll make your way. My dad, I text my dad, hey, having problems getting around this, and he texts me back, well, here's a way to get around. There's public transport to here, to here, to here, but don't stop in this area because all the smoke. And he was really worried because you're getting closer to the fire, and he didn't want me to get burned up because I have no way to move from one town to town, especially if you're hitchhiking.
Yeah.
How are you going to get from one town to the next?
Was that the hardest part of your journey, is just when you ran into it?
Logistics, finding ways around fires or forest closures, those sort of things. Sometimes it's just impossible to find ways around things. And so it takes a lot of networking. Sometimes there's trail angels that will assist you in getting around things.
Yeah, so talk about your sleep system.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had a sleep pad that you inflate. It was a Thermarest X Therm.
Okay.
I used that, and it's mummy shaped. And then I had a sleeping bag that was down.
Yeah.
And it was rated at 0 degrees, so that means you can survive at 0 degrees. You're just not comfortable.
Right. Was it enough for you, or did you want something warmer? Because warmer is going to be heavier.
Right. It was enough, especially if it was really cold. I would just put on my thermals, of course. And if it got cold enough, I'd put on my jacket. You put on your beanie, and you'd sleep with your clothes on. And then
and tent. You had a tent.
I had a tent. I started off with a 1-wall tent, and then ended up going to a 2-wall tent.
Okay.
Slightly heavier, but because it's 2-wall, when you get into that moisture, the moisture will condensate on the top and not inside your tent.
Yeah, that's good.
I did the Big Agnes copper spur.
Big Agnes,
too. And it's a great tent.
Yeah.
And I did the 2-person tent so I could lay things out.
Yeah, you can put your stuff in there too. Yeah, that's good. So I imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you had when your Forrest Gump moment. You remember Forrest Gump when he was doing a lot of running?
Yeah.
And he all of a sudden he had that huge crowd behind him, and he
In
stopped
Arizona.
and he said, "I think I'm done." Did you have that moment where you said, "You know what? I've gone 1,600 miles. I think I'm done"?
I didn't want to be done.
Yeah.
I just knew the time was ticking away. I really missed my family.
Yeah.
And it was time to come home.
Yeah.
And so eventually I found a spot that I could leave the trail. And my mother, father, and my uncle and aunt, and everybody came to pick me up in an RV.
That's great.
And they met me, and I had to leave the trail and walk a few miles off trail in order to get to the town. And during those 2 miles, it's kind of like you're leaving the trail and you're not going to be on it for a while,
Yeah.
And it was a little emotional.
Oh, I'll bet.
I was like, you had done a ton of miles. And there were days, well, maybe I didn't do 18. Maybe I only did 14 miles that day. Another thing is that I didn't do 800 miles. I did 14 miles that day.
Yeah.
It took it day by day. And
Yeah.
maybe I'm going to have lunch at this beautiful lake.
Yeah.
And I'm going to live this moment as best I can. I don't know if I'll ever be back. And that's how I took it. I took it one day at a time, maybe a mile at a time. And, you tell yourself, I should be here. I deserve to be here. And it's so gorgeous being at the top of a mountain. And you take pictures that are horrible. They don't do justice, right. This distance that you can see, 100 miles this way or that way. And they don't do it justice, Or maybe you got to the top of a mountain and you can see clouds below you. It is pretty damn nice. And it'll put a smile on your face and make you go, yeah, I want to see more.
So do you have any plans in the future to do more of the same, to go different trails? Like, do you have any thoughts or ideas of other trails you might want to?
In about a month, I'm going to do rim to rim, and that's in about a month. And then in October, I'd like to do the Grand Canyon from one rim to the other, have lunch,
Yeah.
and then from that rim back for dinner.
Yeah.
And I'll do that in October when it cools down a lot.
Kevin, anything else from you? Any other pressing things you wanted to know from Aden?
No, I've learned more about a true mindset of being in the real wild than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
You can only experience so much from a Hollywood glamorized concept, and what you brought to us, what you brought to me, really just puts it into a great perspective of your experience. So we appreciate you coming on.
Could have been bad, but you just focus.
Yeah.
You had to focus. You had to make sure, I'm taking great care in each step I make. And once you got through it, I really felt great.
What a great adventure, truly an adventure.
Yeah.
What an incredible mindset to go that many miles, and a good portion of those miles hurt even, with a bad ankle. And so great. I was so excited for this month to come and for you to share that story with us. Appreciate you spending that time with us. And I know a lot of our listeners will really like hearing that.
And Chief, I really appreciate you letting me go. This was something I really wanted to do.
I'm glad I even had just a tiny little part
you did
of your adventure. So that's pretty cool.
That's a wrap for this episode featuring Adan Leon from our detention unit. We hope you enjoyed his tales from the trails. Now we'd like to welcome our special guest host, Sergeant Allison Simpsis, to wrap it up with some trivia questions for Chief Walther and Aden.
How are we ending today, Kevin?
What we're going to do is something completely different. Usually we have a thing called 4 Reels, and we're asking kind of random questions that inspires both of you to give me silly answers that sometimes don't make any sense. But because of our special show and getting to know you kind of throughout the show and how your mindset and all that stuff works, we're going to do something a little different. And I'm going to actually bring in a guest host to ask these fun trivia questions to see your knowledge base. So I'm going to bring in Sergeant Allison Simpsis, who's going to be our trivia host today.
Allison, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was an awesome story you just told.
Thank you. It was an awesome experience.
Okay, so question number 1. What type of race in swimming combines 4 different swimming styles?
Individual medley?
That's right. Only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still remains largely intact today. Which one?
Great Pyramids.
The Great Wall.
You were right. The Great Pyramid. This is my personal favorite. What is the only U.S. state to end on the letter G? Oh my gosh, this is not that hard. 5,
End in the letter G.
3,
State.
2, 1. It's the best state. Wyoming.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that one.
Wow.
All right, let's do an easy one for the last one. I just jinxed it. What actress played Vivian in the 1990 film Pretty Woman?
Julie
Julia
Roberts.
Yes. Oh,
Uh-oh.
Oh,
We got
actually tied.
how many bones are in the human body?
no clue.
280.
Close.
213.
270.
206.
A lot.
Ooh, you
All
should
right.
ask this. Look, there's a difference between when you're a baby to an adult because your brain,
Oh, yeah.
fuse,
The
they fuse.
plates come, yeah.
I would have never known that at all. What does Homer Simpson do for a living?
Works at a power plant.
Ah,
Yeah.
very good. That was quick
Never.
too.
I'm one of the. I'm like think one of the rare people that was never really watched The Simpsons.
What kind of power plant?
Nuclear
Nuclear.
power plant. For Mr. Burns.
Who was the founding father of psychoanalysis?
Sigmund Freud.
See,
Jeez.
he's good.
He studied a lot on the journey. How big is the population of the U.S.?
330 million.
320 million.
Ooh.
Wow. Last one. How many continents are there in the world?
7.
That's right. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms at ScottsdalePD.
Thanks, Allison, for sitting in and asking some great questions. And Aden, thanks again for being with us. Great story, great adventure. Thanks, everybody, for listening today. And remember, every day offers each of us the opportunity to be more in the service of others. Take care of each other. It's a crazy world out there. Be safe, head on a swivel, and we'll see you next month. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Shop Talk Episode 9. If there is something you want to know, send us a DM or leave a comment on any of our social pages at ScottsdalePD on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We look forward to having you back next month. Until then, remember to be more.